Hi everyone, it's Jenna here. For those of you who are new to me, I am a Christian, a follower of Jesus, and I love to use mixed media art journaling as a way of spending time with God and digging deeper into His truth. So I have been thinking about Christmas and about Jesus, the Incarnation really, Jesus becoming a human being, God taking on a human form, coming down from heaven to earth, and just the craziness of that, I guess. So this is a sheet from an amazing stash that I was sent by a lovely lady called Emily, who had one of those giant old family Bibles that had fallen apart. But I'm going to be brave today and use one of them as a collage background on this page. And it's the start of Matthew, which has got all the genealogy of Jesus, and then starts to talk about the nativity story of Jesus's birth. So that links with our Christmas theme. And the other sort of inspiration for this page is this image here, which is a rather muscly looking man who, well, with wings actually, I guess, some sort of angelic being. But what I really love about this is the kind of wire mesh effect, which is something, as I understand it, that they use in all kinds of animated films, computer games, to map out figures and how the figures would work before, you worry about the detail of what their hair looks like or what their clothes looks like or whatever. And obviously there are lots of films that make this reference of real flesh and blood human beings going into games or into another world. Like I'm thinking like The Matrix, I'm thinking Tron, and how crazy that experience is, that you would find yourself in this other created world. And that's what Jesus did, isn't it? He went from somewhere, another reality. He was with God the Father in the beginning, and he decided to come down and be in our reality with us. And how crazy and different that must have been for him, having been in heaven all that time with the Father, to then experience what it's like down here on earth. So these are the kind of things that I want to ponder on as I'm making this. And I'm going for it now, just putting some where are we? Mod Podge, watered down, on the back of this sheet. And I'm now going to put some gesso on the whole page, and this will provide a nice background on which to work onto with other things, and also make this kind of whitewashed and faded a bit. You'll still be able to hopefully see most of the text, but it won't be quite so obvious, and we can start to do things on top. Okay, so it's a couple of days later and I want to get going with this really. I'm feeling the need to put a bit of another colour on here, and I've got a turquoise here that I might have a go with. Yeah, okay, so I'm feeling better already. Now we've got something to balance out that big red strip going on here. And I will be calming down these colours, I think, with quite a lot of white and neutrals. Right, I think I'm going to have a go with some collage now. I've gathered some red collage pieces. I've got bits of tissue paper, bits of like mulberry paper and handmade paper, some hand painted stuff, some scrapbooking paper, like a real mixture. I just went through my stash to see what I could find, and there's some more here that I made as well. I want to go probably for more of a darker red, but maybe with some of these bits as well. So I'm just going to have a play around with that now to get some pattern and texture in the background. And I'm going for red because of Jesus's blood, I guess. That's and the idea of flesh and blood, because we're thinking about the idea of incarnation and the fact that Jesus became human. He became flesh and blood like us. So the first thing I'm going to do is tear up what I have into smaller pieces, because it's quite difficult when you have a large sheet to really have a sense of what you can do. It's quite intimidating to try and think, oh, where does this giant sheet, especially when you've got a strong colour like this. So it's a lot easier to play with collage if you've got some smaller pieces, and I like to tear them rather than cut them. I like the random shapes that we start getting. I might get a bit more of this one. So I really like how it's looking. I like how messy it is because we are thinking about the incarnation. In fact, I've even cut out some little dictionary from a dictionary page, the definitions, human and incarnate, and it's got incarnation there. So I might stick those on somewhere somehow at some stage. Yeah, I like I kind of really like the messiness of this, because we're thinking about how God left heaven and came to the mess of earth, became part of that mess, became like us, and took on flesh and material form. And that's messy, isn't it? Like our humanness is messy in terms of our morality and our values, but it's also just messy just being a physical being, isn't it? Like, you know, our bodies don't always work as they should, and there's a kind of awkwardness about that, which I imagine Jesus didn't experience in heaven, and hopefully we won't experience in heaven ultimately. But down here on earth, things are not exactly always graceful and smooth, and yeah. So also I'm going with this sort of video game kind of analogy. So I thought, thinking about The Matrix, if you remember that film, I just remember a computer screen with loads of digits kind of scrolling down it. And so I wanted to create something a bit graphical and digitally feeling, other than just our digitally grid man thing that eventually some point he will arrive on the page. So I thought I'd do something with these letters, stamping them down. And also I really like the little dots on this. Is a piece of a wallpaper sample. You can go and get wallpaper samples, little bits from many kind of DIY shops, and I pick up a little piece of a textured one occasionally when I go into those kind of stores, and this is a really nice one. I really like all those little bobbles going on there. So I might have a go with that first. Actually, I might try this ink. Just try putting a bit on here. I'm not sure if this is going to work very successfully, but we'll have a go. And then I'm just going to use it like a stamp. Just try it on there, see what happens. Oh yeah, we got a bit going on there. Can you see that? Those little dots. I like that. When you've got a kind of really messy, textured, abstracty kind of collagey, painty background going on, bringing in something quite graphic through a stencil or some stamping like this is a really good contrast, and I think it helps bring it together a bit. Bubble wrap is a really great thing to stamp with as well. Easy to get hold of. Some going on here. Difficult bit now is knowing when to stop, because it's so much fun. So I've been listening to some, why did I put that upside down? I've been listening to some Christmas carols. It is very, very nearly December. So, and I think everyone started a bit early this year because lockdown has been so boring and frustrating. We've needed a bit of Christmas cheer. So I've got the carols on early. And I was listening to some of the lyrics of the old carols, like Hark the Herald and Oh, come all ye faithful. They're just amazing lyrics, and I'd really like to write some of the lyrics on this page in a bit. I think I'll do that. Right, where am I going to stamp this? So see those letters coming on, and then I'm just kind of I'm not stamping a word, I'm just using it as a kind of like the ABC and then the end of the alphabet, the X, Y, Z, the alpha and omega thing. I wonder if I could get an X, Y, Z going on down here. W. Yeah, that's cool. I love that. Just a little thought. So I thought as my next step, I would use a white Posca pen to write some of those lyrics from the carol Hark the Herald. So what I'm going to write is the verse that goes, veiled in flesh, the Godhead see, hail the incarnate deity, pleased as man, with man to dwell, Jesus our Emmanuel. Wow, perfect words to go with what I'm trying to say here. My original intention had always been to transfer this chappie, or at least some of these lines, using carbon paper. Do you remember carbon paper? Like that, if you need a duplicate of a receipt. Well, you might not know, but you can get carbon paper in all sorts of cool colours. So I've got, my lovely dad bought me these a couple of years ago now, I think probably. I've got blue, I've got a yellowy browny colour, ochre colour, and I've got red. So you put the inky side face down, and then whatever you draw on top of this, which you can just draw directly onto it, will hopefully press through to the other side. Let's have a look. Yes, you can see there's a blue line there. It's quite faint. So this is a bit experimental. I'm going to sit down now and have a go and see how we get on. So I'm just going to start by tracing the outline here of his chin. So what was going on in that process? That's kind of fascinating to me. Ooh. You know, how was the divine nature translated into flesh and blood? DNA, I guess. I don't know much about biology. If there's any biologists out there, maybe you could share a few thoughts on what you think was going on. I was thinking, you know, the numbers, the lines of numbers that could be computer code. They could also be these letters. They weren't numbers, but they were the letter stamping I did. Also, like a DNA code is made up of lots of different letters, isn't it? And that tells our bodies what the shape of our chin will be. And as I'm tracing this rather nice male form, who knows what Jesus actually looked like, you know, what colour eyes he had, what colour hair he had. it's interesting, how were those decisions made, you know? And there's lots of thought, isn't there, in genetics about how much of our character is nature versus nurture as well. He was in his very nature God, being in his very nature God, it says in the Bible. I'll look that one up. So his nature, whatever was downloaded from heaven into Mary's womb, was godlike in nature. But then there was the whole nurture as well, wasn't there? Like, how did Mary's care of Jesus and the circumstances... Oh yes, look, it's working. The circumstances of his life impact the character that he was. You know, he was a refugee, wasn't he, in the early years of his life. They had to flee from Herod and go and hide. You know, how did that impact who Jesus was? Obviously, all of this is in God's perfect plan. And same is true of our lives. God knits us together in our mother's womb. That's the DNA bit. But also he allows the circumstances of our life to mould who we are as a person, and help us to become more like Jesus. And those might be good circumstances, those might be difficult circumstances. I've also been thinking, as I make this page, about our art and how our art is a creative process in the same way as the incarnation is a creative process. I guess, like we incarnate an idea, we give flesh. It means to give flesh to, I think. So we have an idea in our imagination, and then we bring it out of our imagination into the real world through whatever medium we're using. And in that sense, we're incarnating the idea. And yeah, I just think that's like can be a really beautiful thing. I mean, it depends what we're giving flesh to, doesn't it? We don't want to give flesh to, or time to, or even thought to things that are not of God. But if our creative imaginations are stayed on him, and we are meditating on what is pure and what is lovely, and our ideas come from that place, then what we are giving flesh to is something of the kingdom. We're making tangible a kingdom idea. The fact that we're made in the image of God, we are creative people, and however we express that creativity, our creativity comes from God, because he is a creator God. And so our ability to incarnate, to make flesh, put flesh on an idea, to bring into reality the things of the kingdom, however we do that, is all part of who God is in us. I think that's what I'm trying to say, although I'm not sure I'm saying it that well. but hopefully you get that thought, which has been part of what I've been mulling over in the background of doing this. Now, I probably haven't managed to do every line, and I don't think I'm going to do the face. But should we have a look at what it looks like? Oh, I'm really excited. This is the kind of exciting, scary part where, oh dear, I don't know what that was. Something fell off the table. Where we see what we've drawn. Have a little look. Oh, look. Really, really fun. Get some carbon paper, folks. It's fun, it's cheap, and it's a really one of my many cheaty ways, as someone who isn't particularly talented at drawing or can't be bothered to draw a lot of the time, is one of my cheaty ways of getting an image onto a page, carbon paper. Shall we have a look? Oh yeah, I really like that. That is really cool. Now it's quite subtle. I think I need to give more emphasis to the outline, but I like that it's subtle and that you can still see everything that's going on underneath. I love the way that this piece of red here, which I ended up scribbling a heart round, because Jesus tells us so much about the heart of God. God is love, and we see that in the person, in the flesh, love personified in the person of Jesus. So that's why I turned this piece of red here into a heart, and it's amazingly just appeared in the right place in the human form. Like what I'm doing here, guys, I have not planned out in any way, really. I knew I wanted to do something about the Incarnation, and I had this guy, but beyond that, all the collage and paint and splodges and what have you, I'm doing quite spontaneously as the ideas and the opportunities come. I didn't realise that this would look like this at this stage. So when things like this happen, you think, oh, I've got a red bit there, and oh, it looks a bit like a heart. Following those little instincts and those little nudgings can then speak to you. That, like I was just saying, how that spoke to me of Jesus showing us what love is. So I've got a couple of Inktense pencils here. They're water soluble, a bit like water colour pencils, but a bit stronger in colour. And I've got Deep Indigo, which is my all-time favourite, which, as you can see, is getting a lot shorter than the others. And I've also got Ink Black. So I'm going to try outlining the figure a bit more with these guys. I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I love this little tiny piece of paper here that's been pulled out from this strip, because it makes me think of Jesus leaving heaven. So I've got to wait for my drips to dry. I was just using acrylic ink there. I like the idea of the drips coming down. Again, it's that idea from heaven to earth, that downward motion. I like this one went all the way down here to the heart, and it kind of feels like a tear coming off his face, and his compassion that motivated Jesus to leave heaven and come on the rescue mission to save us all. That compassion seems to be there in that drip there, so I'm really liking that. At the bottom half here, this is all happy accidents, by the way, guys, and this is the whole point of working in a way where you're not just putting down on the page something that's a fully formed idea out of your head on the page exactly as you want it to be, but being open to the spontaneity of working in a mixed media sort of way, in a kind of messy, spontaneous kind of way. You get to have that conversation with God. You get to see something that's happened and go, God, what are you saying in this drip that's coming down from Jesus's face down into his heart? What are you saying about your compassion, your love? And you might not feel God saying anything. You might feel like it's just an accident and it might look good or it might look ugly, and that's fine. But sometimes you get that, if your heart is open to the Holy Spirit speaking, I believe that God is speaking all the time, guys. It's not for special people. It's not for special moments. God is continually pouring out his heart to us as our daddy in heaven. And it's just, this for me is just an opportunity to tune in the radio, because I'm in the moment. I'm not distracted by other people. So I get to spend time with a quiet heart, listening to whatever God would want to say to me at this moment. So that's why I love what I do. I'm not very good at explaining it, but I'm just trying to, in little bite-sized bits, explain how I respond to what's going on the page, and how I bounce that back up to God, and he bounces it back to me with more revelation on whatever I'm pondering. Hope that makes sense. So another area that I see here, I'm feeling like this red is really strong here, and I kind of like it. And I feel like I want to add more red coming down here into this dark area. Again, I feel like the light at the top and the dark at the bottom, which I hadn't really intended at the beginning, but I started to play with when I started adding the dark ink down here. Again, that's to me is that process of Jesus coming down into the darkness and craziness of earth. So that's the movement that I've got going on there, and I wanted to add a bit more red. I might add more light dark contrast as we go on, but I wanted to add a bit more red here because I kind of saw a cross here. I do see crosses in my work, I feel. I don't go out to paint a cross, although that's a fine thing to do if you want to do it, but I do find them on the page, and it's amazing, isn't it, the story of the Nativity, how the cross is already there in, for example, in the gifts that the Magi, the wise men, bring to Jesus. The prophetic awareness of his death is already there. Can you see the cross there? So my drips are mostly dry. I did add quite a lot more of the dark Payne's grey ink in this area here to make the bottom half darker. And I really like it. I think it's nearly there. I feel like I just need to kind of calm down some of the areas. I'm going to try with some gesso, I think. I think I'm going to stick my little dictionary definition of the word human up here. Maybe a bit higher. So here we are. I think I'm nearly done. I keep saying that, but then I keep fiddling with it. I added quite a bit more white up in this corner just to calm down all this red that's going on. It's really grungy, and I kind of like that about it. So yeah, I added a bit more dark at the bottom, a bit more light at the top, just to make that distinction. I think I really like these little dots that I used, and I feel like it needs a bit more of that kind of graphic element, so I thought I might just go in, this is just a Sharpie, and do some kind of doodly bits. So as well as these little dots, I am going to add a little bit of washi tape, which is always a nice little finishing touch. And I like the fact that this chevron design reminds me of arrows. So I'm going to do the arrows coming down. And I thought I might use this stencil as well to go back in with some white. I think I'm going to use gesso again. And the other thing I was thinking about was I was listening, well, actually I had the thought before I listened. Last night I was thinking about the red in this painting, and I was thinking about the David Crowder song Red Letters. I don't know if you know that song, but the music video to go with that song is just amazing. I really just love the aesthetic of it. It's very beautiful. It's got this lady wandering through the woods and this red string. She's following this trail of this red string. And the song itself is about the Red Letter Bible and the guy who came up with the idea of putting all of Jesus's words in red. And I believe it's not just the words that Jesus spoke, it's also things in the Old Testament that he quoted are also in red, and I think maybe prophecies about him in the Old Testament are also in red. The idea being that you can follow this thread of Jesus through the Old Testament into the New Testament and beyond. So I love that idea of a thread going through history, and I thought I would actually add that red thread to this picture to echo that same idea. So I'm just going to pull some off here. Down from heaven, like this, somewhere, coming down through Jesus and down to the cross and onwards. In fact, I don't know if you can see down here, I have done a little squiggle, which is a bit like a heartbeat on one of those machines in hospitals, if you watch Casualty, all that kind of thing. I don't know why I did that, actually. Just thinking about the life, I suppose the life coming to Mary's womb, I suppose, thinking about the Incarnation. But also life came back to Jesus after the cross. So this is also about the resurrection, I think, and our life that resurrection power releases for us. So I really like the idea of this red thread going all the way diagonally through this picture. If we can find a way of sticking it on. So I'm just going to have to go in there with some glue. It's not going to be easy. So here it is. This is my finished piece. I've really enjoyed making it and pondering the Incarnation with you and sharing with you my process of how I start without too much of a fixed plan in mind, and stay open to all those incidental little happenings which can speak to us so much if we are open to the Holy Spirit and what he has to say. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please subscribe to me on YouTube, like my Facebook page, and there will be more videos to come in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and see you soon.